Welcome to our segment, What's Your PD Party Trick? I'm Jessica Krauser, and I'm here with Brian Baker.
Hello, Jessica.
How are you?
I'm wonderful.
Great. Brian, we have a special guest back with us
Again?
Again.
We always have special guests.
Stevie
You can't
B.
get rid of me.
Yeah, I know. You can't get rid of him because we're
It's his
we're
studio.
We're at your studio. So we're here. But we're here again with Steve. Thanks again for coming back.
Nice to be here. Thanks.
For those of you who were listening to our last podcast with Steve, it was Pass the Kool-Aid. So we heard your story about receiving your diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
But this time, we're going to talk about your journey with DBS, Deep Brain Stimulation surgery.
Correct.
So, but why do we call it a PD party? Do you have a PD party trick?
I do not have a PD.
Do you know what a
party.
PD party trick is?
I'm assuming it's like when you can shake the
Do something
paint.
fun. So I didn't think that this was a trick, but Melissa thought it was a trick when I said, I'm like, I like to wave, and I go, and I did this in one of our other segments, and I stop. Like it stops going, whereas like this hand keeps going. This one just stops shaking. So that's the only party trick I have.
I don't know. I play a lot of cards with my friends that make fun of me when I can't shuffle. Is that a party trick?
Maybe that could
Maybe.
be it. Yeah.
Could be.
Here we
Well,
go.
Steve has the best party trick. Have you ever seen it?
I have not seen his party trick.
Really?
No, he hides it from me.
Oh my gosh. I feel very privileged because I've seen it a lot now. My kids have even seen it.
The kids have seen it?
Yes.
You wanna see it?
Let's show everybody your party trick. And if you're just listening, I'll tell you what's happening.
Okay, so the system that I have allows me to change stimulation programs, do a lot of different things, but it also has an off button. And I'm going to turn it off right now.
So this is your remote control to your DBS system,
Right.
which controls
So
your tremors.
It's going to stop all stimulation.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to turn it off.
So for those of you who can't see, if you're listening in only, Steve is now shaking uncontrollably, and almost to the point where he's going to drop his remote, and hopefully he'll get back to being able to turn it back on. And then we're going to talk about how this all works. Ready? Did you get it?
It's getting there.
Okay. Okay.
Voila.
Party trick.
It is an amazing party trick.
Yes. Okay. So,
Yes, it is.
So, talk to us about what just happened. Talk to us about your symptoms before you had DBS and the symptoms that we just saw, and that will then lead us into the DBS discussion.
My symptoms were tremors, and tremors only, in my right hand, my right side.
Mm-hmm.
So I went in for surgery in December 18th, 2019 to control the tremors in the right-hand side of my body. And then tremors got worse on the left-hand side, so I just had my left-hand side done this past year. I used to hear people talk about their on times and their off times, and I never really got it because I never really had an on time or an off time. I was on 9 pills of carbidopa, levodopa a day, 3 times a day.
Wow.
And I never really got much relief from it.
Mm-hmm.
So I told Dr. Henkel I want to sign up for brain surgery.
So you brought it up.
Yes.
How did you even know about it?
I read about it the very first time I looked on the Parkinson's website. And way down to the bottom it said, if all else fails, deep brain stimulation surgery. Well, I knew that day that I was going to have that because that seemed to be the best choice. I'd rather get rid of something for a long period of time than deal with a lot of meds over a long period of time.
So you weren't like, you almost sound like you didn't even hesitate.
No. And I didn't. I mean, I'm after the end game, and the nice thing about it is that DBS will control tremors that possibly didn't get controlled with meds. In fact, I'm not on any meds now.
Nothing.
Nope.
Is that uncommon or common?
I think that's uncommon. from what I
most people
understand.
are like Roz that we talked to.
Right.
She's going to probably still be on some meds.
Right.
Yeah, I think they, what I saw out there, what I've heard is that if your tremors are your primary symptoms, there is a chance you could be on no medication. But if rigidity and stiffness is your primary problem, that they do usually those people stay on medication.
So what can DBS help with? I mean, because we have a lot of symptoms that we're all differently affected, but
The things that DBS is best at controlling is tremors, slowness, and stiffness. And it also will allow you to hopefully reduce your meds you're taking. And we're continuing to work on my tremors even a year after my surgery. So, it takes some patience. I mean, the signals are emitted out of,
So this is
I don't know how close up you can see this.
so
but
there's several devices out there. So this is
This is the Boston Scientific system.
So let's talk about the system. Let's talk about your journey, like what the surgery was like, and what you're holding in your hand looks like, just like a long, skinny little wire.
Mm-hmm.
So that's in your body.
That's in my brain,
Mm-hmm.
deep in my brain. And there's the neat thing about this is it has 4 areas that emit 360 degrees at varying amounts of pulsing width and current.
Mm-hmm.
Which just, I mean, it's the equivalent of millions of numerical combinations that can control whatever problem you've got, whether it be hand tremor, leg tremor, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I went into surgery, and of course, all of us who have tremors know that it's the first thing that hits you when you wake up in the morning. It's the last thing before you go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I was lucky in that when I went to sleep, my brain stopped working, my tremors stopped also.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd wake up in the morning, I'm like, don't think of anything. Don't think, but it never worked.
Yeah.
But the tremors would be back. And when I had my surgery, I'll never forget, I woke up, they bring you awake during the surgical procedure. And I realized immediately that my hand and my arm was just laying beside me, peaceful as peaceful could be. And I thought, well, this must be what it's like to be normal again, And so they put me through some procedures. I had to tap my fingers like this and stick my tongue out. And then they had me count backwards from the month of December. So I did, December, November, October, and by the time I got to June, my jaw was literally ratcheted all over as far as it could go. And as hard as I could not utter the words June.
What happened?
They were just increasing the pulsing width and the power within the unit.
They were basically seeing how much you can take or how
Right.
much.
And I heard somebody say, well, I think we've reached the upper limit. And
Yeah.
then the next thing I knew, I woke up in recovery.
Oh.
Yeah.
So you're like awake but not awake.
Now, I was fully awake. I understood commands and things like that and could do them. But it was a little unsettling when, I knew I needed to get to June, but I couldn't.
Interesting. So they talk about it like like I've heard it described as like it's like a pacemaker for your brain. But everybody's still, I mean, rightly so, freaked out about it a little bit because it's your brain.
Mm-hmm.
But so what are they putting in there?
Well, these are the leads that they put in.
So those are that's like a wire,
Right.
right? Can I see it?
Sure. And then
Did you ever see it?
I have not touched
we
it.
have a graphic of my first lead that controlled my right side, and it shows the actual lead in my brain and the waves that it's putting it out. And it looks kind of like a fat figure 8. And that was a very challenging programming session. And once I understood that this is how it worked, then I became a better patient. I went in there with specific agenda that I wanted to be able to carry a coffee mug from my 11 o'clock to my 2 o'clock without tremoring, because I could carry a glass of water with no problem, but the intricacies of moving your thumb to carry a cup of coffee, and you think about it, it's a whole different set of muscles, whole different set of intricacies. And about a half hour later, he worked on the computer, and I was able to carry a coffee mug.
Just by him changing like
Right.
computer signals or something.
Pulsing and pulse widths and strengths and things like that. Yeah.
Interesting.
But I mean, it's fascinating. And then so now I just come with very specific things that I want to accomplish.
So this whole process of getting DBS, let's just even focus on one side of your brain. Just the one side. You had one surgery that they went into the brain.
Right. They drilled a hole in my head about the size of a dime,
Uh-huh.
and then they superimpose your MRI, your original MRI, over a computer-generated MRI that determines the best route that they want to go. And that's how they know that they've got it perfectly in sync, and they know that's exactly where they want to put the insertion guiding tube.
So they put that in during one surgery.
Right.
Then you come back.
Right. And then they sew the ends of it up underneath your skin. And then for me, now for people that go for dual control, then the next surgery they have puts in another one. They'll drill another hole and put in the other side. But for
And
me,
that's what Roz is doing right now, right? She had
Yes.
dual, so she had her first
Right.
side last month, her next side this month, and now what's the next step?
the next step after that is they put this transmitter in.
That's what's
And that's what generates the electricity that goes to your leads.
and where is this?
Right, mine is on my collarbone like that. It's, I mean, you can see it's
So they do
small
surgery
thing.
then, and the surgery
And that's an
implants this.
outpatient surgery. And
Is
what,
it?
Yeah, and what they do is they actually
Do you see it?
take the wires that they have curled up over underneath your scalp, and for lack of a better word, I say they take like a butter knife to separate your skin from the underneath, side of your scalp,
Yeah.
to make a way for those wires to meet. And then they hook it up to the stimulator, and then that's when the fun begins,
Yeah.
And I must not have been paying attention in class, because I thought, and Judy thought, that we would go into the programming session, they'd flip a switch and we'd go home. Everything would be great. But it's not like that. So it takes a degree of patience, because it's a long,
Like how long?
drawn-out period. I would say 6 to 8 months
To get it right.
to get it right, to get it perfect. And then once you learn how the thing works, then you can ask for specific things. And that's where it really does become fun, because you go up with an objective in mind and you come home with it working. And that's a feeling of validation there.
Yeah. Not everybody, though, can get DBS, right? You had to go through a pretty rigorous process.
It was. I mean, it was a 2-day process, and it goes over your memory and your cognitive skills and things like that. But I actually enjoyed that a lot. I mean, I enjoyed the memory test. Well, I mean, they read you a bunch of words, and they say, and then you have to repeat them back, and then they read them to you again. Then
Don't
you
tell
repeat
him,
them
because
back.
then he's
No,
going to know what to expect.
And then this is like a 4-hour procedure, and then
Yeah.
an hour into it, they say, "Remember those words we read to you? Do it back." So I mean, it was a challenge, but I loved it. I enjoyed it, and you need to know that these trials, these tests, are designed for everybody to fail them. It's just establishing where, at what point, you fail. But they'll tell you stories and streets and with a lot of detail, and you just bark it back at them.
And you've done that
Fun.
before?
I went to Cleveland Clinic where they were doing some kind of brain testing or whatever like that. So I went there and did it, and it was pretty much the same test that they're doing now. They read a story about some lady getting robbed, and she had a pink purse, and so like an hour later they'll say, "What color was that purse?" And
Right.
you know,
And the police felt bad, and they took up a collection for
yeah.
her.
Yeah, that's the same one.
It's the same story.
Yeah.
And they ask you how much see. I gotta remember how much they collected. They collected, so much money, and she lived on the third apartment by the.
Yeah, she was actually a cook for a high school cafeteria.
So with DBS though, I know you said you were reading a website that said, if all else fails, like try surgery.
Right.
But it's
That
it's
didn't
really
get
not
it
that.
with me. Well, I
But-
mean, that's the old line of
That's
thinking.
the old right.
you
And
know?
what I've heard recently is you can wait 3 to 4 years after your diagnosis. I know you went sooner, but
Yeah, I went 15 months.
yeah, oh wow.
Because my concern was, what if a year from now I'm not a candidate?
Because
You
you're
know?
only a candidate for
A viable period of time, and it could very well be years. But I'd rather have it sooner rather than later.
to enjoy life.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I
my
mean-
understanding. Is there's a window of, you have to be so far advanced in your Parkinson's, but you can't be too far advanced in your Parkinson's where you start having like cognitive issues and stuff like that. Because that's when they said the surgery is not going to work.
Well, and I know that I heard, I think it was on another podcast with actually all of the, a bunch of manufacturers as well as neurologists saying, like you said, it used to be thought of as it was the last thing people would do, like resort to, but it
Yeah.
should be one of the first because it's not that it stops, but like it puts you where you currently are. Right? Like if you're so far down, like there might be things that the DBS can't bring back or can't help you with. But if you get it early enough, like you did, you can live.
It's solved all my problems, And right now we're working on controlling tremors without giving up balance. So that's the one thing we're working on now. And I look at it as, and people say brain surgery. People get all hung up about brain surgery. And brain surgery for me was a walk in the park. I mean, I had my surgery one day, went home the next, and 6:30 the next morning, I was in the kitchen fixing eggs and grits. And I never looked back. I was off pain meds in about 3 days because there's no pain sensors in your brain, So, my experience, the brain surgery itself was a walk in the park. I've had shoulder surgery far more painful and eventful
Recovery
than
time
the brain surgery. And I look at it as, Home Depot sold what? Millions of electric drills last year, Now one person who bought one of those electric drills really wanted it. You know what they wanted? They wanted holes. It's the same way with brain surgery. None of us really want to go through brain surgery, but we desperately want what brain surgery will get us. And that's a more normal life that we can live with our families and grandkids and for many more years.
Well, that's so well said.
So you have we've seen the battery pack and the lead. So what else do you have there in front of you?
The battery charger, which I love. I don't know who designed this, but in my opinion, they're rock stars. This is a wireless battery, and I turn it on,
Oh, I didn't even think about that. You have to
and
charge
it just hangs. Yeah,
what's in there.
it just hangs. You can hear it beeping. If
How long does it take?
it can charge up to 4 weeks without having to recharge again. I usually charge about every week or so,
But like how long do you have to keep that thing on?
about half hour, 45 minutes.
That's it.
And I've charged mowing the yard. I've charged at 30,000 feet in an airplane. I've charged walking around Disney World with my kids, building a birdhouse for my 105-year-old mother-in-law. I'm a busy person, and this thing doesn't stop me, from getting what I need to do. And I love this system. Now, if I were to buy this system in Europe, the battery would last me 20 years. But due to whatever regulations that happen here in the United States, the battery's only listed for like 15 years or something like that. But it's the same battery. So 20-year battery without having to get cut open again Yeah, I'm all over that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
It is cool.
And I think the best compliment that the Boston Scientific people can have is when somebody tells me, gosh, I would never know you even had Parkinson's.
Mm-hmm.
And I get that all the time.
Yeah.
You know? And it's because of what this system does for me. It's made me normal again.
And I know you have a video that you shared with your surgeon.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll have to share that. We'll share that in a separate segment. But just
Sure.
as a thank you, because they do so many of these, like you said. But
Well, I think it can, you know, if you do life-changing surgeries time and time and time again, I'm not saying that it does for them, but for me, it could get just nuts and bolts. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Roll them in, you know. So I created a video just thanking Dr. Nagel for the changes that he made in my life.
Well,
And I meant every word of it.
Good.
I mean, he's really, really, and the system's changed my life.
we'll definitely share that. And Steve, thank you again. Thank you for sharing your party trick with us. It's the best party trick I think we've ever seen. You need to get one. You need to get.
And
You
party
get a
trick.
DBS or
Oh
party
yeah,
trick?
both.
And you know, I will also say something about that the party trick is actually a very deep personal
Mm-hmm.
revelation that really hit me once I saw it played back. And because, you know, from this angle, it's just a party trick, but seeing it played back was pretty significant for me. It was a reminder to me of how bad my tremors are
Mm-hmm.
and the excellent control I'm getting. So the system does it all. And I just thank God whoever put it together. These are some really smart people.
Well, we really appreciate you sharing that because it's a personal journey, but
That
it's
it
definitely
is.
one that I'm glad that you can share with everybody because there's so many people who are scared or don't know about all this, the different things that we can do besides medication. And
Well, Dr. Walter said that on my last programming session up there, he's the head of the DBS department. And he said because of me going, so many people within our organization have gone, you know, to get theirs done too. He said they were going to add a new demographic question to the new patient register. And the question was, are you a friend of Steve's?
I could definitely see them adding that because of how many people I already know have been.
I
to see
laughed
him,
out
so
loud.
That's
But
great.
that was fine.
That's good. I mean, that's getting the word out and being an advocate. I think that's huge. So thank you for all that you're doing for that.
My pleasure.
All right, in our last 30 seconds, I want to leave you with this. Please remember, we are patients just like you. We are not medical professionals telling you what to do. But there are a lot of patients out there that don't know about DBS, or they heard of it and they fear it because it's brain surgery, or because it's not as well known as something like a pacemaker would be. But don't let fear stop you from learning. Educate yourself and talk to your doctor. At the end of the day, do what's best for you. Thanks for tuning in.
Hello, Dr. Nagel. You performed surgery on me this past December the 18th. It's hard to believe that it's been 5 months now, but that's a day I'll never forget. Because that's the day that you gave my life back to me. From a business standpoint, I'm producing videos again, without tremors. But the most important thing you've done for me is that you've made it possible for me to feel normal again. As a grandfather to my sweet little girls, and as a husband to my loving wife. You know, you perform miracles every day, and I'm just forever grateful to you for what you've done. You and your team, and the folks at the Cleveland Clinic. And I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart because you have truly changed my life.